Bump and Run with Bernie and Dahlby. Presented by Burrito Express, your local burrito joint. Now, here's Brett Bernheisel and Steve Dahlby.
Well, here we are again, and I got this left at my front door. It just said B on it, and I get it. And it says, let me read this to you there, Dahlby, if I can open the thing up.
Okay.
It says, Bernie, congrats to both you and Steve for a remarkable run. Keep up the good work. I'm sorry, great work. She had good and canceled that out and put great work. Jackie. I have no idea who Jackie is, but...
Thank you, Jackie.
Sweet 16, Dahlby. We have made it to show 16. What are your thoughts?
Right. Thank you, Jackie, for your support and being a loyal listener, I guess. Yeah, that's cool.
So I got a chance today, before we get into our podcast, I got a chance to surf the internet, and I came across this podcast from our friend Tucker Booth, who had a podcast he did yesterday with you. And I got to be very honest with you. It was really good. And I thought you two blended so well during this podcast that I actually retweeted it with a comment of like, why can't Dahlby do this for our show? So kudos to you. And it was a very must listened podcast. So you can go to Tucker Booth on Twitter, the Mitchell Report, whatever it is, and listen to this. It's actually, you were great, dude.
Yeah, rappers don't play golf, right? That's his podcast.
Yeah, rappers don't golf. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And it was fun. It was different because we do the video thing here. It was just old school on the phone. So maybe I'm better on the phone where I can't see myself, something like that. But no, it was fun. Always good to talk to Tucker Booth and get some of his insight. He's in the entertainment business, but he just loves golf. And there's so many, I think when you think about the AT&T Pebble Beach, the Dunhill Cup, how many people in the entertainment industry love to play golf? And it's you make these connections, even though you're maybe in different business worlds, and it's cool. We were doing, this is way back when, we were doing a Golf Digest school, and I did most of my Golf Digest schools here at Troon North. But sometimes when there were outings in the West Coast, we'd go elsewhere. And I was at La Quinta, and we were at the La Quinta resort there, and it was for a big pro-am going on. So we were doing instruction for some of the people that were there. And I remember one evening, I got out of, just going to try to find the bar or something to eat or something like that. And
the bar, I like that. That's what I try to do every night.
I'm just walking around, and I come around the corner, and bang, I run into this guy. And he was an entertainer, he was an actor, and it was Sean Connery. Sean Connery was there for the outing, so it was kind of cool to run into 007.
Did you really run into him, or was it? Did you bang into the guy, or did you just happen to see him?
Literally came around the corner, right up there, basically touched, and then he said, excuse me, in his accent, and I'm like, okay, this is 007. This is pretty cool. So yeah, it's fun, and Bernie, even when you were caddying, especially on pro-am days, the people that you meet in business or are entertainers or something like that, I'm sure you have fond memories of some of those pro-am days. Unless you were hungover on the pro-am day and you couldn't make it, that story you told a couple weeks ago. But I'm sure you had some fun on Wednesdays.
So back in the day, like the most famous, back in like the Waste Management, when I caddy for my friend that passed away, Wally Kelly, we got a chance to play with Bob Euchre. We played with the guy from not hangover, but casino. We played with him once. We played with George Lopez a couple of years. But I think one of the coolest ones that I ever got to do was when RW was the defending champion in Pittsburgh back on the Nike tour, and this is 1991. He got paired with Mario Lemieux, and we got rained on. It pissed rain. It sucked. We only played 9 holes, but he was a cool dude. And the reason it was such a fond memory for me was the fact that Keith Kachuk, who played for the Coyotes for many years, St. Louis Blues, and him and I played a lot of golf together. He once told me, and I asked him this on at Phoenix Country Club, where you're the teaching pro. I asked him on the third tee, and I said, "Are you afraid of anybody to fight in the NHL?" And he said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "But I won't fight one guy." And I said, "What guy was that? Who is that?" He goes, "I will not fight Mario Lemieux because of who he is." And that was something I'll never forget. We always talk about things you don't forget in life, but he always told me, "Yeah, that's the one guy. I'll fight anybody in the NHL except for Mario Lemieux." So that's a guy that I got to spend 2 hours in a piss poor rain in Pittsburgh one year. But it was a pretty cool story.
No, that is a cool story with Captain Coyote, Keith Kachuk, right? He was Captain Coyote when he played here.
Absolutely. And his nickname was Walt.
Yeah.
His nickname was Walt, and he was a member at Phoenix Country Club too, back in the day. All right, let's fast forward to what happened this weekend at Mayakoba. Congratulations, by the way. I know he didn't win, but all kudos to your boy Troy Merritt, who made the cut on the number, and then finished 15th in the tournament. I think that's a pretty solid tournament for him. He got a lot of FedEx Cup points. I know he made some good cash, but for him making the cut on the number, and which is very important. I mean, because you make a cut, you're going to get some FedEx Cup points, which they all matter. We've talked about this on this podcast or our radio show in the past. Every point you make matters. You see guys at the end of the year, missing their top 125 or missing this particular deal by a point, less than a point, 2 points, things like that. Troy turned making the cut of the number, shooting 133 in the weekend and finishing 15th, and went to 45th or whatever he was in the FedEx Cup. That's a pretty good damn week.
Oh no, and it was a very good week, and it was a week where he didn't have his regular caddy, so he had a friend of his from Boise go along. And unfortunately, about 20 caddies had some trouble in caddy dining. And he was one of those 20 caddies that maybe got into some bad food or maybe drank the water. I don't know. But so he was having a tough week. And it does happen, unfortunately, down there where you do have to be careful when you're in Mexico. So some of the caddies were sick. And so Troy had that going on. But no, he played well. Like you said, he actually needed to par the last hole on Friday, and the last hole
he did.
Is a pretty good hole. Yeah, I think a 400 I don't know if he was on 9 or 18, but it was a 480-yard par 4, and you're kind of like,
9.
Okay, we need 4 here, and he got it up and down, I think, to make par. And then he had a weekend, and this is what happens. I mean, you can make the cut on the number, and then boom, if you have a good weekend, you can top 25, you can top 10, hell, you can get way up there. And I think Troy did a real good job. He had a nice weekend, and tied for 15th. And it was interesting because he played early. So when you play early, you post a score on a golf course like this, where Victor Hovland wins at 23 under par. You're figuring when you get done at tied for 18th, people are going to kind of pass you. And I was, maybe when he finished, he was, 12th. And I'm like, well, maybe he'll be 23rd because everybody's going to pass him. But it kind of worked out. It kind of worked out where he was 18th with just a few groups to play. And then I looked a little bit later and it was 15th. And I actually reloaded a couple times because I thought it was wrong. But a couple guys had some some trouble on the last few holes coming in, and you know, and we sneak a top 15. So that's a very good week. There's some things that I look at. You know, we look at things in seasons now, and the season starts in the fall and it ends in, you know, October or August and or at September. Now it used to be that it was just a year. You remember that, Bernie, when you were caddying, it was just probably the year. I still look at some of the things that my guys do in terms of the year. And so from, you know, January 1st till the end of this year, which will be the Sea Island tournament. And Troy's going to take this week off in Houston, but he's got one more tournament at Sea Island. If things go well, he's going to kind of hit a mark that he hasn't been in a long time. So we'll you know, we're hoping for, you know, a top 20, I think, at Sea Island would kind of do that. So I look at things sometimes differently. I don't always look at it by the season. I do look at it by the seasons, but I also look at it by each calendar year.
Before we get to the tournament itself, I want to add to what you talked about, Troy. Why wouldn't he play this week in Houston? There's only 2 more events really before the calendar year ends. Why wouldn't he play this one and then play Sea Island and then take, you know, whatever, 5-6 weeks off? Why is there does he not like Houston, the course, or what's the theory around that? Or the
golf course for him isn't perfect for his game, but I think with Troy, he'll play any golf course, and I think he feels like he can play well on any golf course. I think, as I remember correctly, I think it's his younger son's birthday this week. And as you know, Bernie, Troy's first priority in life is his family, and he does not like to miss his kids' birthdays, and I don't blame him. His, you know, he's got young sons, and you know, you don't want to miss those things. And so he's skipped the Colonial tournament a couple times in the past, and Colonial is a golf course that on paper fits perfectly for Troy's game. It's not the longest golf course in the world. If you putt well there, it fits, and he's played well at Colonial, and he skipped it because it's his older son's birthday that week. Now, you know, this year the family came out to Colonial, but I think it's his younger son's birthday, or there's something, if there's a family commitment, and you know what, that's him.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah. That's fine. I've no, you know,
and there's other players, Bernie. There's other players that could give a shit about their kids' birthdays. There truly are.
Yeah, I know
that it's golf first, and you know this. It's golf first, and to hell with anything else. It's all about me. That's not Troy Merritt.
You know, kudos to him. I mean, I like the guy already. I like him even more now, and I'm sure that the people watching this podcast completely understand that. I just thought it was just weird having such a short, condensed rest of the season that he wasn't going to play. But you know what? All good for him. On the podcast you did today with Tucker Booth, and I'm going to bring it up again, and it's just going to go right where I'm talking about. You talked about the class of Hovland, Wolf. You couldn't remember the other guy, which
the best one. I couldn't remember.
Yeah. I should have had the sign company make a sign for you and be able to spell his name out, Colin Morikawa. But I think you're right. I think you're right that he's the best of those 3. And there's other people, there's other players involved that, you know, there's a list of whoever came out that year. But Victor Hovland, and I would love for you to be able to get Shay Knight back on our show again, who now caddies for Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland, a lot of people don't know this. So it's on Wednesday, and I don't know the player's name, and I should. Asked to hit Hovland's driver on the range, and he let him hit it, and the club broke. And we're in Mexico. We're not at TPC Scottsdale. We're not at Riviera, and there's nobody there to be able to fix this club. And James Hahn gave his backup driver to Hovland, which was an inch shorter than the driver that he normally uses. He now averages 10 to 12 yards less off the tee because of this, but he's controlling the club better. And he was in complete control of his game the entire round. So my question to you as a coach of Merritt, O'Hare, myself, who needs a lot of help, but getting better. I am trending.
You are trending.
I am trending. Is a shorter golf club sometimes better to be able to keep it in the fairway? Because I think that was the big key this week at Mayakoba. Because if anybody watched the tournament, and I hope a lot of people that watch this show did watch the tournament, there were very tight holes that were, if you missed it 8 to 10 yards right, 8 to 10 yards left, you're in the shit. You're either not finding the ball, taking an unplayable lie, re-teeing it. Is that a big thing? And because we talked about a few weeks ago with Mickelson getting mad about the RNA and the USGA limiting the length of a driver. Is a shorter driver, does it make players my caliber, tour players caliber, have more control and keep it in the fairway better?
Well, when you said that James's driver was an inch shorter, I immediately, even before you kind of got into the stats of things, you would think that would be a good thing. You wouldn't want to, if your driver was broken, you wouldn't probably want to go to a longer one. You would want to go to a shorter one. And remember this, when Tiger Woods dominated golf in the early 2000s, he played a steel shafted driver that was 43 inches long. And I think Mickelson is upset because you can't have a club longer than 47 inches. And obviously Tiger hit it pretty damn far in his day, and he probably, and hopefully he'll be back out and still will. But this is the thing where driving accuracy, Victor was tied for fourth last week, and he was at 73% fairways hit. I'm sure he didn't hit it out in those, in the junk that you're talking about. He hit 77% of the greens, so he was tied seventh in greens hit. And then he putted really well, so that's a good formula. But he was 20th in driving distance at 298, and so for 156 players to be 20th in driving distance, playing with a club that's a little bit shorter but hitting it a little bit straighter, maybe we should take a lesson from that and look at our drivers and think, okay, well, especially for you and me, Bernie, we're probably better off in the fairway and 10 yards shorter than hitting it all over the place and a little bit longer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's what's the most fascinating thing to me is, and I'm 54, soon to be 55, and at one time I was good. I wasn't great. I was good. And I used to hit it, 260, 270 back in the day, 250. I don't know what I hit it. And nowadays, I mean, I like tomorrow. Like tomorrow's the final Tuesday match of the 2021 calendar between U.S. and Canada, and we look at each other like, I pounded that thing. I fucking pounded that thing. Where'd it go? 220, 218, 226. Oh my God, he hit it 235. It's amazing. I look at when I watch, and you're right when you said on that other guy's podcast, on Tucker's podcast today, that I'm so far into this game, even though I only play once a week, but I watch, in tour school. We'll talk about that in a second. But for me, if somebody walked up to me tomorrow, and me not knowing how far I hit it, and said, "Oh yeah, you crushed that drive, dude. You hit it 220," I'd be like, "What?" And then you watch these guys on tour flying at 310, 308, 320. Is it athleticism? Is it different clubs? What is, I mean, and I know I'm fat and out of shape, and I'll be the first one to admit that, and I'm okay with that. That's just who I am, and I'm still married. My wife hasn't left me yet, and I still have friends. But what is the difference? How can somebody hit it 100 yards in the air farther than me?
Yeah, and I think well, one of it, it's the first thing is it's their job and it's what they do. You look at especially the guys we're talking about, these younger guys, they've been trained very, very well since they picked up a golf club. They are more aware of their fitness. They're more aware of their diet. They're more aware of the game itself. They have equipment that is far superior than the equipment that you and I played when we were their age. And it's not just the golf clubs, it's that golf ball. The golf ball goes straighter, the golf ball goes further, the golf ball is fit to each player. So when when Victor's hitting this driver, it's launching at the perfect angle with very little backspin. I remember when I was a kid, we used to like the ball that started out low and then rose. Well, that's backspin. That ball is going out, and then it's backspin that's kicking it up in the air, and it's not really going anywhere. And I will tell you, Bernie, that when I played my best golf, and this is in my younger 20s, so this is years ago, I hardly ever hit driver. I played college golf with a 3-wood. I had a big Ben Hogan 3-wood, and I could move it out there with the old Bellata balls. I could hit a 3-wood out there 285, 290 because I kind of had a shut club face, and so there was no reason for me to hit driver. But the nice thing about that 3-wood is I felt like I could keep it in play, and I think it has a little bit of the same effect that Hovland had this week. Little shorter club. I would think that if anything, with him breaking a club and not having a club, I would have went shorter in length and maybe added a degree of loft for control. I'm sure that this club. I'm sure James Hahn doesn't have a lot of loft on his golf club. It was probably 8 or 9 degrees loft, but he hit it plenty far. 20th for the week. Right around 300 yards, and he's in the fairway almost 75% of the time. That's a good formula for playing good golf, and in his case this week for a dominating win.
If you're his coach, which you're not, do you tell him to stick with that same length or go back to what got you here?
I think that, and we talk about these 3 young kids and who might be the better one, and I think,
and there's more. And Steve, there's more than 3. I mean, there's a handful of guys, and yeah.
I'm just saying with this class, you talk about these class of guys. Matt Wolff hits it the furthest, but I think the thing with his golf swing, there's room for error, meaning left or right. He can still hit it a little bit sideways because he's got some moves in his swing. I think that Morikawa's swing and his ball flight, Morikawa's swing looks like it should be a fade, and his ball fades. So I tend to think that Morikawa has the opportunity to be just like a historically great player, because I think, like Nicklaus, he can kind of just control this fade all day long. And in major championships, and even at Augusta, they say you got to draw it at Augusta. I mean, Nicklaus won at Augusta. You can cut it at Augusta and do just fine. I think it works well for him. With Hovland, I think he's got all the talent in the world, great hands. I think that I would definitely recommend for him that he stick with this. And I'm going to look up as we go kind of what his stats are from the tee normally. I'll try to pull it up right now. But
and while you're doing that, one of the, and I don't remember you ever telling me this, and maybe you did. And if you did, because back when we were on radio, you didn't listen to me, and I really didn't listen to you. Now we're forced to listen to each other and look at each other. But I don't remember you telling me the story about the year that Martin Laird made a 10-foot putt in the last hole at the Walt Disney Classic to keep his card back when you were teaching him. And then you guys set up a program at the end of the season, how to get better, how to improve. Let's do this. And you guys revamped his whole swing, and to make it look, as you said, prettier. And if you look at Matthew Wolff's swing,
it looked pretty.
Yeah, if you look at Matthew Wolf's swing, it's not the prettiest thing from, with the waggle and this and that and all that. And you change Martin Laird's swing, and
Uh-huh.
he missed whatever 10 straight cuts, and you got shit canned
The
and
phone
kicked to the
call.
curb after. Yeah, a phone call. Hey, by the yeah, well, I know what a phone call is from RW, and he ended up going back to his original swing. I'm not making an example of that, but because a lot of players, if you see in this time in the last 5 to 10 years, change equipment, change balls, try to emulate somebody that they can't emulate, and it ends up hurting their career. You look at the fallout, and I'll bring an example of Ricky Fowler, and I think he's gone back from what I've just looked, and you know more than I do because you watch everybody's swing more in depth than I do. He's gone back to what he used to do, and he's starting to play better golf. When these tour pros, or even college golfers, when they want to emulate, and I'll give you credit for this too as well. Sean O'Hara is one of the best golf swings I've ever seen in my life. He does. He has one of the best golf swings I've ever seen. Adam Scott has, but you teach Sean O'Hara. And if somebody comes to you who's, let's just say, 80th in the world, all right, Steve, I want you to help me. I want to swing exactly like Sean O'Hara. Is that something now that, since you've learned from the Martin Laird deal, that you'll try to accomplish, or will you just say, no, we're not going to do that? Let's continue what we're doing with your swing now and just try to improve it little by little.
Well, and it's interesting because if you remember, Bernie, a year ago September, so 2 Septembers ago, I was out at Napa for the tournament, and Sean played with Peter Malnati. And Peter Malnati is a good player, but if you look at Peter's game, very, very good from 150 yards in. Really good with the wedges, good putter, can scramble his ass off. He actually came up after the tournament, after the 2 days actually, and said, "Hey, could I call you? I really like the way Sean swings." And so I never ended up working with Peter. It just didn't happen. But with a guy like Peter Malnati, who, like you said, thinks that Sean swings it great, are there things that Sean does, or Adam Scott does, or Tiger Woods does that you don't, that could help you in some situation? That's where I would go, but it's not going to be, let's get a side-by-side video and try to emulate swings. Now, that's worked. It has worked a couple times. It's worked. Adam Scott copied Tiger Woods' 2000 swing. There was another player, a Korean player, that copied Tiger Woods' swing, and good players. But I think for the most part, every player needs to know their game. And so the mistake that I made with Martin was looking at statistics. He was probably 40th. Let's just say he was 60th in ball striking that year, his first year that he kept his card. He was 140th in short game and putting. We tried to make a swing look pretty because as opposed to going to work on what really was the thing that could improve him, which was his short game. And that was the mistake that I made. Now, going back to Hovland in last season, driving distance was 302.2, which is 53rd in driving distance, so a little over 300 yards. Remember this last week, he was 298.8, right? Driving accuracy last year, he was 60th, so that's hitting it pretty good, but he was at 64%. This last week, he was 74%. So it's this week at Mayakoba, it's a great week. He won the tournament. His game is on, so it's hard to compare to a whole year's statistics, but it's worth looking at. And as a coach, I would think, you know what, it's worth looking at that. Maybe we do play with that shorter driver, and let's see if we only lose 2.5 yards, but we gain 10% or 5% in driving accuracy. That's a big deal on the PGA Tour. And it's a big deal where Victor wants to go is he wants to go to major championships now and big tournaments, big wins, Ryder Cup, stuff like that. 5% in driving accuracy, 10% in driving accuracy. That could be a huge thing for him.
2 yards. Who cares about 2 yards? I mean,
exactly.
The percentage you just said. Yeah, I mean, I could. With me, hell, take 10 yards off. I don't care. I mean, with these guys, 2 yards means nothing. I mean, they're still hitting the same club. 5 yards, they're still hitting the same club. It's to be able to hit a fairway and have, 156 instead of 161. They're still hitting 9 irons, these guys. I mean, I'm hitting a hybrid from anything over 150, but that's just me because I suck. But anyway, yeah, that's the most important thing. But then again, these golf courses of today, and let's just bring up where we live in Scottsdale, where you can hit it 330, 320, hit it in the right rough, hit it in the left rough, and still be able to find it, have an okay lie, and be able to get sand wedge, 9, 8 iron, whatever it might be on the ball, and be able to hit on the green. I think I'm old school. I'm old school, and I know you are too, and I'll rant before I get you riled up here. I grew up playing golf when I was a kid in Salt Lake City, when my dad was the pro there. I mean, I played many courses way before then, but I'm 16 years old now, and we played in Salt Lake City at Willow Creek Country Club, where if you miss the fairway, you're in this bluegrass that you're not hitting 4 irons out of. You're not hitting a 3-wood out of, or you're basically having to lay up. And I think that's the difference between golf between now and back then, is that you get these guys, whether it's, the mad scientist or whoever it might be. And these guys all hit it 300 yards now, so it doesn't matter. But they hit it so far that they're able to get a club on a ball in the rough, and it doesn't matter. And that's what I think. I think that the difference in the game has changed so much, where if you miss a fairway nowadays on the PGA Tour, because the PGA Tour wants excitement, birdies, eagles, birdies. They don't want to see anybody, having to chip out and make a bogey, at the Waste Management or whatever tournament is. The only tournament really that in the tour, and it's not even in charge of it, is the U.S. Open, where, if you miss the fairway of the U.S. Open, you're supposed to get penalized. I don't know why they don't want to have golf like it used to be. I get the excitement factor. Nobody wants to go out to wherever and watch a guy make bogey or double or whatever. The game's just completely changed. I mean, hit it as far as you can, find it, knock it on the green, and have a 12-foot putt for par just because you hit it 340 off the tee. I'm not a fan.
No, and I think you're right. And I think the one thing that there are certain courses that depending on conditions, you do see what I would like 10 under par to win a golf tournament. And I think, you look at a course like Riviera, that's just, for whatever reason, it's just such a good golf course that it just plays a little bit tougher than some. When you go to the Florida swing at PGA National or the Copperhead in Tampa, those two golf courses, if you add just a little bit of wind, that's where you can see a 8 under par win that golf tournament, depending on the wind. But you just said it. It's all about excitement. It's a different, it's a different world than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So, maybe it's you and I that have to adapt to it. But I do like, and I wish that, and you know that there's sometimes where I've been critical of U.S. Open setups where I think the U.S. Opens make them really tight and make the rough really long, and make it an old traditional, um, 1975 kind of U.S. Open setup, and see how the guys play, because these guys are so talented that I would like them sometimes to be a little bit more challenged than 23 under par always winning. And that's, that's me, that's you, that's our opinion. I get the other side of it where it's,
because we're old.
I get the other side of it where it's exciting to see just all sorts of circles around a scorecard. But yeah, I appreciate where guys sometimes have to, work hard for par.
The Champions Tour finals this week. I'm going to get this in real quick at Phoenix Country Club. Yeah. I know you'll be there. I talked about this 2 weeks ago. This is an unbelievable story of Steven Alker, who lives literally, well, let's see, it's uphill. I could probably get there in like 35 shots if I got a good bounce. He lives in Fountain Hills. He had no status on tour, on the Champions Tour this year. Really nice guy, as I talked about a few weeks ago. Can't stand his wife again, still. No status, top 10, 8th, 16th, 5th. Gets in this week because the one thing that's cool and it's different about the Champions Tour and the PGA Tour is the fact that all the money that he had accumulated this year, because it's money out there, he was able to get in to the finals where Will Zalatoris, who won Rookie of the Year last year on the PGA Tour and wasn't a member, which I still don't understand, and I'll go to my grave talking about that. He won last week on the Champions Tour. He's now exempt for the following year. He's 22nd on the money list. And if you would have said 10 weeks ago, if you'd have polled the 75 or 80 players that play in the Champions Tour, if they knew who Steve Alker was, I'm going to tell you 5 or 6 guys might have known. Bernard Longer, no idea. Ernie Els, no idea. Yeah. Jim Furyk even came out and said, no idea. And he won this week, which is a really cool thing, turning 50 for him, and kudos to him. And I hope you have fun next week watching that. But I want to talk about Tour School. The Tour School, the Korn Ferry Tour Finals finished today. And the reason they finished today is they got rained out on Saturday. So if you win Tour School, you are exempt for every tournament on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. If you finish in the top 10, you get a guaranteed 12 starts. If you finish in the top 40, you get a guaranteed 8 starts. If you're not in the top 40, you're basically screwed. It's $6,000 to play in the Korn Ferry Tour qualifying event. And then you got to put in, you got to maybe go to pre-qualifying, first stage, second stage finals. You're probably looking at $13,000, $14,000, and only the top 40 got paid. My question to you, do you like this new thing? Do you like having to qualify to play? And I'm not going to say AAA golf because my friend Rich Pearson, who's a rules official on tour, got mad at me one time on a show a few years ago. Do you like the way that they do it now, that you have to graduate from having no status to be able to go to the Korn Ferry Tour and then have to go to the Korn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour? Or do you like the old days when, in the old days is when I caddied out there, that if you went to the finals at Tour School, you finish in the top 50, you got your card. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I've always kind of liked the idea of the old 6 days of PGA Tour qualifying school, and so many guys got their ticket to the PGA Tour, and then the next guys went to the Korn Ferry Tour. However, I think statistically, it is kind of shown that guys that play the Korn Ferry Tour a year or two and then make their way to the PGA Tour statistically have a better chance of maintaining some kind of status on the PGA Tour than guys years ago that just got hot for that 3 stages, perhaps, if they ran the table, first stage, second stage, and finals, and then went out there. So I think the way it is now is probably the right way to do it. It's just hard to think that these guys that played so well, and it's like there's a kid that I used to work with. I worked with him through his first year in college. He went to the University of Illinois. I played a part in getting him to the University of Illinois. Michael Fiegels. Fiegels was a Brophy kid. He was a member at Forest Highlands. So when I was up there, I started working with him when maybe he was in the 7th grade. And he was, I think, 5th today, maybe 5th. So he's got that 12 tournaments.
12
right?
is
Except
correct.
for the first 12. But then if things don't go well that first 12, he can get shuffled back, which you would think that if you run 5th in the Korn Ferry Tour qualifying school, that you'd be set for the season. It's just there's so many guys and they're so good and there's so few spots. You look at the guys on the PGA Tour, there's 150 guys, 160 guys that you can kind of go through there and think, if these guys have a decent year, they should keep their card. But then you've got these, 25 coming from the Korn Ferry Tour the year before, 25 coming from the finals. It's just so competitive and so difficult that it's a tough job. That's the hard part. It's a tough job. And that's where, you will see the stories of Colin Morikawa or Victor Hovland or Matthew Wolff. Those guys all got through on their exemptions.
Yeah, never went to Q school. Those three guys never went to Q school.
They're so good, and they were so good coming out of college. They were able to do that. Now, there was another guy in that group, though, and he was the one that won more than those 3 in college, Justin Suh. What did Justin do today? I know he started the day, and he was down there a bit. Did you see where he finished?
He didn't finish in the top 40. I watched it today, and I follow the leaderboard. I'll be honest, of the top 50, 60 guys, I didn't know a lot of the names, and I know it's going to be hard to trump me on a lot of this stuff. And we're going to have Monday Q info. He was supposed to come on tonight, but he couldn't because he caddied for Mark Baldwin in Houston. They unfortunately didn't get through. But if you don't get in the top 40 in this, and you paid all this money, you saved this money, or whoever you got sponsors or whatever you might have done, or Mike Visecki, who Justin Thomas gave him money. He finished boy, that was a meltdown. He finished 65th or 70th, and he had a rough go at the last few holes. And nerves get to people. I get it. I've been through. I've watched it. I've been to, 7, 8 Q schools. It sucks for a caddy. It sucks. It's so hard because it's back then. This was your whole life. Either you're playing back on the Hogan Tour or Nike Tour or Nationwide, whatever the hell it's called, as I say each and every week, or you get your tour card. And the drive home, I'll never forget. There was a story before we move forward. There was a story or a time in 91. I don't know what. 91, 90, 92. I don't know. And we finished the 5th round. I was caddying for RW. We finished the 5th round at PGA West, and I didn't know that the tee times were going to change. I figured we're playing with these 3 guys. We're playing with Dahlby, Blanker, and it's Eakes, and we're going to go play the next day. Well, they revamped the tee times that night, and for some reason, I thought we were at let's just say 9:40, and at 7:10, RW and I had rented back in the day, and I can call it an Airbnb, whatever you want to call it. We had rented somebody's house. And he come knocking on my door. I was back before I found booze. He knocked on my door. We got to go. We're on the tee in 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, it's 7:10. No, we're on the tee at 7:30 or 7:40. Mm-hmm. So I don't shower. I put on shoes. He's screaming at me. I don't even put socks on. And I run down we had to run down these stairs. I run down these stairs. I hop in the car. He's screaming at me. We get to PGA West. We got literally, and I swear to you, 8 minutes before our tee time, he grabs 2 clubs out of the bag, runs to the range, literally running RW with his bad knees and hips, which I've been told are now fixed. I go to the first tee, and he comes up. We hit a snap hook off the first tee. We shoot like, I don't know, 74, 75, and miss by like, I don't know, 6, 5. And after that round, we now have to drive from Palm Springs to back to Scottsdale. And the worst thing was he missed the guaranteed money by 1 shot, which would have paid for his whole tour school. It had to be the longest 6 hours of my life because it was my fault. Kinda. He should have maybe checked too. And that we had the wrong tee time. And it was the biggest tour school nightmare ride home I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, and it's an awful situation. And then to have to drive 4.5 hours with
6.
Either you were getting yelled at, or there was nothing. That just had to have been awful. So Justin Suh he shot 2 under today. He ended up tied 39th. So what does that do for him?
So that gets him 8 starts.
Okay, so he gets the first 8 starts. Okay,
yeah,
so that's he started out the first round with 77 and then shot 68 the last 3 days. So that's good work. But I mean, this is a kid that coming out of that class, he was kind of he was supposed to be with Morikawa and Wolf and Hovland. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can turn this around and really, run those first 8 tournaments and then go. And Bernie, you tell the story, and it's, that's a shitty story. When O'Hare got his tour card, I think it was the fall of 2005. I think my first season as a coach on the PGA Tour was 2006. So it's the fall of 2005. He had played mini tour golf all over the place. He had played what they call the New England Tour. He comes out to Troon North, and we work on some stuff, and he goes to first stage I think it was down at Rio Rico. It's down south of Tucson, right?
Yeah.
So he gets through.
That was real for you. That was my final year at Saguaro High School, where you're the golf coach. That was that was the championship of back then 5A golf in Arizona, and I finished 4th at Rio Rico.
Oh, there you go. That's nice. Go Cats. So he gets through there, right? So now second stage is at, what is it? Fort Ord? Is it Fort Ord in California, in Monterey, California?
Bayonet, the Bayonet.
It was on the other one. It was on, what's the other one? Blackstone and Bayonet. So it wasn't on Bayonet. It was on Black Horse.
Black Horse. Yeah, Black Horse.
And Bayonet.
So
it wasn't Bayonet. Bayonet's, yeah, both of them are, but Bayonet's a beast. They were on the other one. I think it's Black Horse. And the whole thought of this thing was just get through second stage so that we can get to finals, and then you have some kind of a job. Corn Ferry Tour. It would have been whatever it was, buy.com at the time. So he's in pretty good shape. He's got his father-in-law on the bag. I'm there all week, and just kind of struggles on the front 9 the last day. And then there's, I think maybe on 10, he hits a shot, he's posing, it goes over the green, right? So now he's mad at his caddy for giving him the wrong yardage, right? So now I think we're a shot out. It seems like we're going to be a shot out. And I look, they're walking down 11, and Sean is walking down the left rough, and his father-in-law, the caddy, is walking down the right rough. They are not talking to each other. They're 70 yards apart. And then they come together. They come together. Sean hits the shot, and they part, and they go back down. It was awful. And I think I remember, things didn't go well. I actually kind of like walked up or past him and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And we're not talking. And I'm like, well, you guys probably need to talk. We got 6 holes to go here. We got to do something. We got to make a couple birdies. Sean, I believe he birdied the last 3 holes, had to make one from about 10 feet on 18 to get through second stage on the number. And then got to Palm Springs at PGA West, 6 rounds. They kind of knew Sean's story. They were following him around with cameras. And he think he shot 68 the last. He was in pretty good shape, shot 68 the last round, and kind of went by everybody, took fourth, and then, instead of just having a job on the buy.com, he's got his regular PGA Tour card. And then that was the year they had the big Gateway Tour Championship at Greyhawk. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
It was on TV. So he had gotten his card, and then he had that tournament, and I think he took second in that one, made some money, and then off to the PGA Tour. So that's my fondest memory of those 6 days at PGA West.
All right, so people have been grinding me about. I didn't finish the story last week about the 18th hole at Tucson National, but before I get to that, it's time for Who You Got? Sponsored by our good friends of Burrito Express, your local burrito joint. As you can see by the leaderboard here, last week I had Carlos Ortiz, who finished second. You had Joaquin Neiman, who finished fifth. And
that was good.
Schubert, who was not on the show tonight, he had Tony Finau Baby, who finished 45th. So as you can see, I'm now closing the gap. I am first this week, so I am going to fire my bullet. So the reason I'm going to fire this bullet this way is because, and I know you're not allowed to talk about it, because you made a big deal about on your guest appearance on the Tucker Booth podcast today, is that I was given a free $100 bet by our fine folks at MGM. And I decided I'm going to place that $100 on Justin Thomas to be the top American at last week's Mayakoba. Well. He was the top American because in the last hole, Taylor Gooch hit it in the lumberyard and made double bogey. So to offset that, my pick this week to win the Houston Open is Taylor Gooch.
Oh, okay. That's a good pick. He's playing very, very well.
Then I will give Schubert's pick since he faxed it into me earlier today. So I'll give his pick here in a second.
And so I'm gonna Houston Open. You got to go with a Texas guy. So
you don't have to.
Well, you do. It's Houston. It's Texas. Let's go with.
Take Scheffler. Take the chalk.
Well, you know what? Just because you said that, I'm going to take Ryan Palmer. It was between those two, and I'm going to go against you. I'm going to take Ryan Palmer next week in Houston. Just because you said Scheffler, I'm going a different direction. Yep.
No, I mean, you can't. You remember, you can't use the same guy twice. All right, Schubert has texted me earlier today. He is going with the guy that actually had the tournament won after 2 days last week at Mayakoba, and a guy that we've talked about on the show already. He is going with Matthew Wolff. So to recap, I have Taylor Gooch. You have Ryan Palmer, and Schubert has Matthew Wolff for this week's Who You Got? And by the way, next week, we're actually playing with the guys at Burrito Express. You're not, and you can anytime you want, but we are. So before we go, I want to finish the story last week about the 18th hole at Tucson National. This was 1995 or 6, and I was retired. But I got a call from RW to go ask if I wanted to caddy for him in Tucson at the Tucson Open. And I'm like, yeah, I figured things out. I think I was unemployed or standing on a street corner begging for money. And we went down the Tucson, separate cars this time, thank God. And we ended up having a lead after the first round. I don't know what we shot, like 63 or 64. And it was pretty cool. You know, first time I've caddied in, 3 or 4 years or 2 years or whatever it might have been. Well, anyway, fast forward to the last round, and we come to the 18th hole at Tucson National. And one thing people have to realize is that RW is the guy that can hear a bird chirping from 2,000 yards away. He can hear a leaf fall off a tree, that's 2,000 yards away. And we're on the 18th hole. I think we're like tied 7th, final round. And he had this sponsor back then. I don't remember his name, but the sponsor was actually pushing his grandkid in a stroller for the entire final round. And we're on 18, and as you said last week, there's water on the right, water on the left. And I can see his sponsor coming up with the stroller coming through some rocks. And RW is probably 20 yards away. And RW is in his preset routine, and he's almost ready to pull it back, and I pull him off the shot. I go, hey, whoa. What's up? I said, the stroller's coming. So he resets and hits this snipe into the left water.
Oh.
And you talk about O'Hare and his father-in-law being on different sides of the course. Him and I are the opposite. We're like a foot apart from each other. And he's yelling at me. And we end up getting up there, and then they got the guy with the flag. Oh, your ball's in the water. Your ball's in the water.
Yeah,
and now
great,
we got
thanks.
I don't know, we got like 230 left, and he hits this 5-wood to about, I don't know, 2 feet, and we make bogey. Oh, no, I'm sorry, make par.
Yeah, make par.
But it was, and he was mad. He was mad because I pulled him off the shot. And this goes back to, if I didn't pull him off the shot and he hits it in the right water, and why didn't I pull him off the shot and things like that? So when you talked about O'Hare and his father-in-law being 70 yards apart, RW and I were a foot. But going back to a story way back in the day, caddying on the Champions Tour in New York, he got to ride in the cart with the clubs on it, and the caddy couldn't ride in the cart, and he played 4 holes without me, and I walked probably 200 yards behind him the whole way, never cleaned his ball, and I just kept walking to the next tee and things like that. But, all right, it's been a great podcast, Schubert. Hope you feel better. Sean Crespin, still haven't talked to you in, 5 months. But, Dahlby, this was good. Have a great week watching the Champions Tour at Phoenix Country Club, and we'll speak next week, pal.
All right, hit them straight, everybody. Go Phil at Phoenix Country Club.